You ever meet a learner who's been studying English for years, and they're amazing at grammar, amazing at vocabulary? They know every rule. But the moment they talk to real people, it feels like they suddenly stepped into an entirely different language. I've seen it so many times, and it's not because they're missing knowledge. It's because school teaches you English like a clean museum, quiet, polite, perfect, and real English is nothing like that. Real English is loud, messy, fast, funny, emotional, and sometimes makes absolutely zero sense. And honestly, that's what makes it beautiful.
Exactly. Real English isn't the kind where every sentence fits a rule. It's the kind where people start talking before they've even decided what they want to say. It's the English where someone changes their mind halfway through a sentence or repeats a phrase 3 times because their brain is catching up to their mouth. It's the English where friends joke with each other, tease each other, interrupt each other. School teaches you silence, structure, and politeness. Real people teach you chaos, friendly chaos, and that's the version learners fall in love with.
And I feel like the funniest part is when learners meet these everyday shortcuts and expressions for the first time. They're like, wait, is that allowed? Because nobody ever told them English can be playful. They were taught that English is a very serious language with strict rules. But real English breaks those rules every 5 minutes. Like when people say, I gotta go. Wanna come? Give me a second. These aren't mistakes. These are what people actually say every single day. And once a learner hears them in conversation, they suddenly realize English has two versions, the school version and the human version.
And the human version feels so comfortable once you get used to it. It's the version where you don't need long sentences to express something important. Someone can just say, I'm good. And that can mean no thank you, I'm fine, I'm okay, I don't need anything, or even I'm not in the mood. Same 3 words, 100 meanings. School would never prepare you for that. You only learn those meanings when you actually live inside English, even if that living just means watching real conversations or talking to real people online.
And some phrases don't even look like vocabulary. They look like emotions. Like when someone says, seriously? That could mean surprise, disappointment, affection, excitement, all depending on the tone. And you only learn those meanings from watching real people. No textbook chapter is titled Emotional English 101. Maybe it should be. But right now, learners have to figure these things out through experience, not instruction.
You know what's another big difference? Real English uses tiny reactions constantly. People don't just sit quietly while you talk unless the conversation is painfully awkward. Real people say, yeah, mm-hmm, oh, wow, right, wait, what? All throughout the conversation. They react like they're part of it. But school trains learners to stay silent until the other person stops talking, like they're in a formal interview. And when they enter a real conversation, they feel lost. They think they're supposed to wait. But real conversations don't wait for anyone.
Exactly. Conversations in real life have a rhythm. Sometimes people talk fast, sometimes slow, sometimes they overlap or jump in with a joke, and all of that is normal. That's why learners who only studied from books often feel like native speakers talk too fast. It's not just the speed, it's the rhythm. Real English is like music. You don't just memorize notes, you feel the flow. And that flow is something no classroom can truly capture.
And let's talk about Friends English for a moment, because that's a whole new level. Friends have their own phrases, inside jokes, shortcuts, things they repeat all the time. If you hang around a group of English speakers for just one afternoon, you'll start noticing patterns that never show up in school. Things like, don't even start. You're unbelievable. That checks out. I'm dead. Stop, you're too much. These aren't formal expressions, they're social glue. You only learn them when you're watching how people interact naturally.
And sometimes learners worry that they shouldn't use those expressions because they're slang. But honestly, that's the English that makes you sound connected. Not perfect, connected. There's a huge difference. Being perfect is boring. Being connected makes you part of the conversation. When you use a phrase like, no worries, or all good, suddenly you're not just speaking English. You're speaking like someone who belongs in the moment.
And that's why I always tell learners, don't rely only on the English you get from teachers. Pay attention to how people talk when they're relaxed. That's the version of English you'll actually use. Teachers teach rules, people teach reality. And the reality is way more fun.
So if someone wants to understand real English, the kind spoken in cafes, group chats, living rooms, parks, offices, bus stops, they need exposure to voices that aren't filtered through a classroom. They need to hear how friends talk to each other, how coworkers talk during lunch, how people talk when they're comfortable. That's where language lives, not in the perfect sentences, but in the messy, warm, funny moments between them.
And honestly, once learners start noticing that version of English, everything gets easier. Movies make more sense, conversations feel less stressful, people sound friendlier, and your own English becomes smoother without forcing it. It's like discovering a doorway you didn't know existed, and suddenly the language feels bigger, softer, more human.
There's something magical that happens when you start paying attention to how people use English outside of the classroom. You realize the language has this whole personality that school never warned you about. I mean, the first time you hear someone say, "Yeah, no, you're good," your brain is like, "What? Is that yes? Is that no? Are we good or not?" But once you live around it, you understand it instantly. It means, relax, it's fine. It's funny how the strangest combinations of words become totally normal once you've heard them 5 or 6 times in real conversations.
It's like the way people use sarcasm in English. Textbooks won't touch that. They'll tell you sarcasm exists, but they won't tell you how common it is or how people use it when they're comfortable with each other. Like when someone says, "Oh yeah, because that worked out great last time." They're not complimenting you, they're laughing with you. Not at you, with you. That's the kind of English that makes conversations feel alive. But you only learn it from being around real speakers, not grammar charts.
And then there's the world of little reactions. You never learn these in school, but they're a huge part of real English. The okay. Wait, hold on. No way. Oh, come on. They seem tiny, but they carry emotion. They show that you're following the story, not just listening like a statue. In real conversations, people respond every few seconds. They keep the energy moving. But learners often stay silent, thinking that's polite. And then they wonder why the conversation feels uncomfortable. It's because real English is full of life, not silence.
And you know what I love? The way people soften serious news with humor. School teaches you to follow strict grammar rules. Real people use humor to make communication easier. Like when someone says, "Okay, so funny story," right before they admit they made a huge mistake. Or when they say, "You're gonna love this," and you already know something chaotic is coming. There's so much personality in these tiny expressions. They're like emotional shortcuts. School English is clean. Real English has flavor.
And a lot of learners think, if I don't talk like that, people won't understand me. But actually, it's the opposite. People understand you perfectly. They just won't feel your full personality yet. Because personality doesn't come from perfect grammar. It comes from the playful parts of speech, the jokes, the little sighs, the tiny sounds you make when you're thinking. English is emotional before it's logical.
That's why when learners finally spend time in a real English environment, whether online or offline, they suddenly start picking up habits without even studying. Someone tells them a story and they naturally respond with "stop" or "no way" or "you're kidding." It's not a vocabulary lesson, it's imitation. Humans learn language by copying other humans, and the more relaxed and comfortable the environment is, the faster the learning happens.
And here's something learners don't realize. Real English is extremely forgiving. People interrupt themselves all the time. They say half a sentence, pause, go backward, restart, and nobody cares. Nobody. But learners think they need to speak like they're reading poetry. They pressure themselves to be flawless. Meanwhile, native speakers talk like their ideas are racing each other and nobody's winning. If you listen closely, half the sentences aren't even complete. They just sort of slide into the next one. And that's normal.
It's so true. Take group discussions. Someone starts a thought. I mean, the fun thing is, and then someone else jumps in. Oh, totally. And the worst part is, and suddenly the whole group is laughing and finishing each other's sentences. School English says one person talks at a time. Real English says, good luck, everybody. And learners usually think that chaos means they're doing something wrong. But actually, if you're interrupting to agree or to laugh or to relate, that's a sign you belong in the conversation.
Another thing school never shows you is how flexible English expressions are. For example, take the phrase, I'm good. It's like a Swiss Army knife English. It can mean, I don't need anything, I'm fine, I'm okay emotionally, no thank you, I'm comfortable, I'm not hungry, please stop offering me food. It's one phrase used for everything. You only understand which meaning someone intends by the situation, the tone, or the relationship. And that kind of understanding comes from experience, not memorization.
And speaking of food, school teaches you, I'm full. But real people don't use that as often as textbooks pretend. People say, I'm stuffed, I'm good, I'm done, I can't eat anymore, I'm capping out, or even, I'm in pain, which is when someone has definitely eaten too much. That's the kind of English that doesn't show up in class because class focuses on perfect, polite structures. Meanwhile, real conversations are full of creative ways to say the same thing.
And there's another big difference. Real English includes a ton of casual kindness. People say things like, take your time, no rush, you're fine, all good, don't stress it. These are tiny, but they're powerful socially. They show patience, comfort, friendliness. School teaches you how to ask for things. Real people teach you how to make others feel safe and welcome. And that's a skill you can only learn from human interaction.
And you'll notice something else the more English you hear. People don't always use the correct word. They use the normal one. School teaches purchase. Real people say buy. School teaches difficult. Real people say hard. School teaches incorrect. Real people say wrong. And when someone actually uses the textbook version in a casual conversation, it sounds funny because it feels too formal. Real English chooses the simpler option almost every time.
And honestly, once learners understand that, their confidence skyrockets. Because suddenly English stops being this complicated exam and becomes something they already know how to handle. Humans know how to connect. Humans know how to react, tease, laugh, question, joke, interrupt, explore, and English is just a tool for that. Once you see language as a human tool, not a perfect structure, everything becomes easier.
And here's the best part. Real English makes you sound like you, not like a character from a grammar book. You get to bring your personality into it. If you're funny in your native language, you can be funny in English. If you're expressive, playful, dramatic, calm, all of that transfers. But school doesn't teach personality. Real people do.
And that's why every learner should spend time consuming the English real people use. Podcasts, casual videos, interviews, group conversations, live streams, even comments on social media. Because every time you see how humans use the language, you discover new layers you didn't know existed. And your own English becomes richer, warmer, and more natural without forcing it.
And once that happens, you're not learning English anymore. You're living it.
Something funny happens when you start paying attention to English used by regular people instead of teachers. You start noticing how much personality is hiding inside ordinary words. Like, take the phrase, come on. School teaches it like it's only for encouragement, but in real life it can mean excitement, disbelief, frustration, or even affection. Someone can say it with a smile, or with raised eyebrows, or while shaking their head. One tiny phrase, 5 different emotions. And if you asked a classroom to explain all of that, they'd probably need 3 pages and a chart.
Exactly. There's so much communication happening outside the vocabulary list. The tone, the rhythm, the speed, the pauses. That's where the real message is hiding. Think about when someone says, sure. Now, if you read that in a textbook, it's positive. But in real life, the same word can mean yes, fine, whatever, absolutely not, or I'm still thinking about it. People learn those meanings not by studying, but by watching how friends, coworkers, neighbors use the word. It's almost like English has a secret emotional dictionary you only unlock through real exposure.
I remember the first time I noticed how people shorten everything. Not slang, just natural shortcuts. Things like, I'm gonna, I'm kinda, I'm tryna, let me see, I don't know, didn't ya, could ya. They sound messy in writing, but in speech, they're smooth. No one thinks about them. And learners often panic when they hear them because they sound like one long word. But once you're used to real English, you don't hear a blur, you hear meaning. And suddenly, those shortcuts become normal for you too.
And the wild part is how fast learners improve once they start picking up these natural patterns. Not because they're studying more, but because they're finally listening to English the same way babies do, by soaking it in. That's why people who watch a lot of English content often end up speaking more naturally than people who study grammar for years, because they're copying the music of the language, not just the structure of it.
There's also the way English speakers exaggerate things for humor. Someone will say, I'm starving, even though they ate 2 hours ago. Or I'm dying when they're only tired. Or this is illegal when they're just joking about liking something too much. And none of these are meant literally. You only understand them by recognizing that English speakers use exaggeration as a bonding tool. School makes it sound like everything must be precise. Real English, people use drama for comedy all the time.
And the inside jokes people create, that's another level of English you never get from a textbook. Like when two friends repeat the same silly phrase because it happened once and now it's their thing. Or when someone quotes a meme or a movie line in a completely different context just for fun. These things don't translate well, but they make conversations feel alive. Learners often think they're not good enough to join that level, but honestly, you become part of it just by spending time in those social spaces.
One thing learners tell me a lot is, I understand English, but I can't respond quickly. And the reason is simple. School teaches them to respond perfectly, not naturally. Real English is fast because people aren't planning what they say. They're reacting instantly with their instincts, not their memory. And learners can get there too, but only when they stop trying to prepare full sentences and start reacting emotionally instead of academically.
Yeah, reacting instead of performing. That changes everything. If someone tells you a story about their crazy morning, they don't want a perfectly structured sentence. They want your reaction. Like, wait, what? No way. Seriously? That's rough. Oh man, I've been there. Those tiny reactions build connection. And once you get comfortable making them, your spoken English becomes 10 times more natural, even if your grammar isn't perfect.
Another thing Real English teaches you is timing. Knowing when to talk, when to hold back, when to add a comment. This has nothing to do with vocabulary. It's social sense. You feel the rhythm of the conversation and you jump in when it makes sense. And if you mess up, don't worry. Native speakers do it all the time. People interrupt each other constantly. They lose their point. They forget what they were saying. That's normal. Nobody speaks like those clean textbook dialogues.
And let's talk about small talk for a moment, because I think that's another area where school English and real English don't match at all. In class, small talk is presented like a list. How's the weather? How are you? What do you do for work? But in real life, small talk is messy and playful. People talk about random things: food, sleep, traffic, weird dreams, something funny they saw online. They jump from topic to topic without warning. It's less about content and more about warming up the social space.
Exactly. And people use small talk to test the vibe, to see if the other person is relaxed, friendly, open to talking. That's why learners sometimes freeze. They think they're supposed to follow rules. But in reality, the only rule is be present. React. Notice something funny. Share a tiny detail. Ask a casual question. No pressure.
And once you get comfortable with that, you unlock another layer of English: improvisation, because real conversations are unpredictable. Someone might turn a simple question into a story. Someone might make a joke. Someone might surprise you with a random comment. And real English fluency means being able to dance with that unpredictability, lean into it, enjoy it. That's what makes you sound natural.
One of the biggest breakthroughs learners have is when they stop trying to translate their speech. The moment they think less and feel more, their English becomes smoother. Not because they suddenly know more words, but because they stop fighting the language. They let it flow. They let mistakes happen. They stop trying to be perfect. And ironically, that's when their English improves the fastest.
Real people don't speak perfectly, they speak comfortably. That's the difference. And comfort only comes from real exposure. Laughing with people, chatting freely, watching real content, listening to what English sounds like when nobody's trying to teach. That's the English you absorb without noticing. And that's the English that sticks.
And once you start learning from real people, the language stops feeling foreign. It becomes part of your daily life. You start thinking in it occasionally. You catch yourself using natural phrases without planning. You understand jokes instantly. You react in English before your brain has time to translate. That's the moment every learner is aiming for, the point where English becomes effortless.
And the beautiful thing is, anyone can reach that point. It's not about talent. It's not about being good at languages. It's about exposure, repetition, real human interaction, and letting go of the fear of sounding imperfect. Once you do that, real English becomes yours.
When we look at how learners grow, the most impressive changes usually appear when they begin noticing the details in everyday speech, not because they memorize long lists, but because they start paying attention to how people actually express themselves. Real communication isn't built on fancy vocabulary. It's built on clarity, tone, and comfort. Once those pieces come together, the language feels completely different.
Exactly. And the moment someone starts listening to conversations with curiosity instead of pressure, everything becomes easier. You stop focusing on mistakes and start focusing on meaning. When learners reach that point, they understand English the way real speakers do, through feeling, rhythm, and context. And that kind of understanding doesn't disappear. It stays with you.
That's why learning from real people is so valuable. You discover expressions that aren't in textbooks, but they're everywhere in daily life. Things like soft reactions, supportive comments, small phrases that make conversations flow naturally. These pieces of language aren't obvious at first, but once they become familiar, speaking feels far more natural.
And it also removes a lot of pressure. Many learners believe they must speak perfectly to be understood, but the reality is much kinder than that. English is incredibly forgiving. People don't need perfect grammar from you. They just need to feel your message. Real conversations are full of imperfect sentences, unfinished thoughts, and quick adjustments. And yet, communication continues smoothly.
So if you're listening right now and working on your English, remember this. You are not competing with a textbook version of the language. You're connecting with real people who appreciate your effort. And the more you listen to authentic speech from shows, conversations, podcasts, anything real, the more naturally your own English will grow.
And we're glad you're learning with us. It means a lot that you spend your time here, improving, practicing, and building confidence step by step.
Thanks for being here with us today. If you enjoy learning this way, stay connected with us and subscribe so you never miss a new episode. We'll see you in the next one.